midst of Southeast Asia's ancient jungles, along the banks of the Mekong and Tonle Sap, there were whispers of a land where kings wielded power, like gods, and realms rose and fell with furious speed. This was the birth of Cambodia, a kingdom born from myth, ambition, and audacious spirits who carved a civilization from the untamed wilds. The journey begins with Funan, a land of mystery. The story goes that Funan was founded by a wandering Indian Brahmin and a serpent queen. Their union, a symbol of power and divine right, set the stage for centuries of legendary rule.
Funan's foundation myth was vital. It gave rulers the divine legitimacy that resonated with their people and allies.
By the 1st century, Funan had become a powerful maritime hub. Traders from distant lands, India, Rome, and China, passed through its thriving ports, bringing with them exotic goods and new ideas. The rulers of Funan were clever. They drew influence from India, adopting its writing, religion, and art to reinforce their own authority. King Kaundinya, the legendary founder, is said to have married the Naga princess Soma in a tale that mingled alliance and power. This bond was more than just a story. It laid the foundation for the kingdom's culture and politics.
Kaundinya's marriage to Soma symbolized the unification of local traditions with foreign influence, an early example of Cambodia's cultural blend.
Funan thrived, its rulers sharp in trade and daring in diplomacy, but its vast wealth and loose governance left it vulnerable to rivals. By the 6th century, Funan began to crumble and its influence faded, giving way to a new kingdom, Chenla. Chenla was a landlocked power, an inland realm where warfare and shifting allegiances constantly roiled the royal court. Rulers like Pavavarman wielded fierce military might, seizing territories and consolidating control with both strength and cunning. His rule was one of expansion, and for a brief, bright moment, Chenla seemed unstoppable.
Chenla's leaders took a direct approach, conquering territories and enforcing loyalty to maintain unity, but it was a challenge to hold it all together.
Chenla's own ambition, however, would be its undoing. Power was decentralized, and its own hunger to expand caused internal fractures. As Chenla struggled, a young prince named Jayavarman II rose to prominence in the 9th century. Legend has it he had travelled far across Asia, observing the great empires and learning their secrets. When he returned, he declared himself Devaraja, the God King, and founded the Khmer Empire. Jayavarman's vision was bold. He would unite the land under a single rule, wielding both divine authority and ruthless military force.
Jayavarman III's Devaraja title wasn't just symbolic. It positioned him as both spiritual and temporal leader, solidifying his rule.
Under Jayavarman II, the Khmer Empire grew to be a spectacle of both spiritual and physical power. Each new temple he commissioned was an assertion of his dominion, both over the gods and his people. By the time of his successors, the empire flourished even more. King Yasovarman I expanded the capital at Angkor, transforming it into the beating heart of the Khmer Empire. He ordered the construction of vast reservoirs to control the seasonal flooding of the Tonle Sap, ensuring a stable water supply for agriculture year-round. This grand system of water management allowed Angkor to feed its growing population, an engineering feat that would sustain the empire for generations.
Yasovarman's reservoirs weren't just functional. They were an impressive display of the empire's capacity for large-scale innovation and planning.
The Khmer Empire reached its zenith in the 12th century under King Suryavarman II. Determined to immortalize his legacy, Suryavarman embarked on a monumental project that would come to define his reign, Angkor Wat. He envisioned a temple dedicated to the god Vishnu that would stand as a testament to his rule, something that would echo across the ages. Thousands of craftsmen toiled for decades, chiseling intricate reliefs into stone, depicting legends, battles, and the grandeur of the empire itself. Hands bled and backs ached, but they persisted, driven by the king's vision of immortality.
The scale and the detail of Angkor Wat were unheard of. Even today, the temple is a marvel of devotion and craftsmanship.
Suryavarman's empire stretched far, its power felt throughout Southeast Asia. Yet, as with all empires, it was vulnerable to the same cycles of ambition and rivalry that had toppled those before it. The Khmer Empire was not immune to the forces of time and internal strife, but in its glory, it stood as one of the ancient world's greatest powers, a realm where gods and kings walked side by side, where ambition carved temples from stone, and where the legacy of one man's dream would echo long after his time. Jayavarman VII took the throne with an unbreakable spirit, part warrior, part devoted Buddhist. He led campaigns to reclaim lands from Champa and expand the Khmer Empire. His victory left a mark on Cambodia, etched in stone. His masterpiece, Bayon Temple, a towering symbol of vigilance, its countless faces carved to watch over his hard-won empire.
Jayavarman's efforts were unmatched, but they came at a steep price, draining both resources and the people's endurance.
The relentless demands of war and monument building took their toll. By the 13th century, the grandeur of Angkor began to fade. The empire's proud temples and intricate canal systems, once the envy of Southeast Asia, stood as silent reminders of an era that could no longer sustain itself. Slowly, the Khmer Empire fractured, slipping into history like a storm retreating into the distance.
Bayon's iconic faces still captivate us, a testament to the empire's spiritual and artistic peak.
Centuries passed and Cambodia drifted, but in the 19th century a new challenge emerged, European imperialism, creeping ever closer to Southeast Asia's borders. In 1863, King Norodom sought protection from the French, aware of looming threats from neighbouring Siam and Vietnam. The French promised security, but at a cost. Cambodia would be shielded from invasion, yet gradually lost its sovereignty.
This was the beginning of a deep, uneasy dependency, one that would leave scars on Cambodia's independence.
By 1887, Cambodia was absorbed into French Indochina. French officials reshaped traditional customs, imposing their own systems and taxing the people heavily. In Phnom Penh's royal palace, rumours spread. Was this protection merely disguised control? For decades, Cambodians held on to their culture, quietly resisting, even as French influence settled over the land. Open rebellion was too dangerous under colonial rule, yet the spirit of resistance simmered. World War II ignited new dynamics. In 1941, Japanese forces entered Cambodia. The French remained, but Japan's presence weakened their authority. For many Cambodians, Japan represented just another foreign power, until Japan's surrender in 1945 offered a glimmer of autonomy. King Norodom Sihanouk, young yet determined, seized the moment. Cautiously, he pushed against French control, harnessing his people's rising nationalist spirit. His efforts culminated in 1953 when Cambodia finally broke free, reclaiming its independence.
Sihanouk's skillful diplomacy set the stage for independence, an enduring point of pride for Cambodians.
But Cambodia's trials continued. The Cold War cast its shadow as the superpowers vied for influence across Southeast Asia. Sihanouk, aiming to keep Cambodia neutral, distanced the nation from both the US and the Soviet Union. Yet internal strife threatened his ambitions. In 1970, General Lon Nol staged a coup, aligning Cambodia with the United States and entangling it in the Vietnam War. Bombs ravaged the land, and from the chaos a sinister force emerged, the Khmer Rouge, led by the elusive Pol Pot. The Khmer Rouge drew followers from rural Cambodia, rallying them with promises of a return to national glory and freedom from foreign hands. In 1975, they seized Phnom Penh, and their reign began. Cities were evacuated, families broken apart, and Cambodia transformed into a brutal labour camp. The slightest dissent, even a perceived failure, met with ruthless punishment. By 1979, nearly 2 million lives had been lost under a vision warped beyond recognition.
Pol Pot's regime aimed to erase Cambodia's past, but instead plunged it into one of history's darkest chapters.
The Khmer Rouge's grip on Cambodia was fierce but not invulnerable. In January 1979, Vietnamese forces entered Cambodia, ending Pol Pot's regime and setting up a new government. But true peace remained out of reach. Cambodia became a Cold War battleground, with superpowers backing rival factions. Sihanouk returned, hoping to reunify his country, but old wounds and rivalries persisted. In Nan, a fragile truce emerged with the Paris peace agreements. The United Nations supervised democratic elections, marking Cambodia's tentative step towards stability. By 1993, Cambodia became a constitutional monarchy, and Sihanouk once again took the throne. Yet the nation's spirit bore the weight of scars, remnants from both colonial rule and the Khmer Rouge's brutal reign. In 1993, Cambodia took a tentative step toward democracy as Prince Norodom Ranariddh's Phun Khin Pek party claimed a symbolic victory. They formed a coalition government with Hun Sen's Cambodian People's Party, CPP, but this partnership was fragile. Tensions simmered between the two leaders, Prince Ranariddh, representing the royalist past, and Hun Sen, a former prime minister under the Vietnamese-backed regime.
These early coalitions were often more symbolic than stable, with both leaders wary of each other's ambitions.
By 1997, the uneasy power-sharing broke into violence. Hun Sen led a coup, ousting Ranariddh, who fled the country. Consolidating his rule, Hun Sen established a centralized government that would shape Cambodia's politics for decades. Despite the turbulent start, efforts to rebuild the country began. Schools, hospitals, and roads were reconstructed, and foreign aid started flowing in. In 2013, after a contested election, the opposition Cambodian National Rescue Party, CNRP, accused the CPP of electoral fraud, sparking mass protests across Phnom Penh. The government's response was swift and strict as Hun Sen reinforced his grip on power. By 2017, he dissolved the CNRP, effectively creating a one-party system under the CPP, a move that drew international condemnation. The focus shifted to Cambodia's alliance with global powers, particularly China. Chinese investments transformed landscapes with roads, bridges, and sprawling casinos in Sihanoukville, fueling economic growth but raising questions about environmental and social costs. Then, the COVID-19 pandemic struck, halting tourism and disrupting the garment industry. Yet, a swift vaccine rollout, largely assisted by China, allowed Cambodia to reopen by late 2021. In 2023, Hun Sen announced his intent to transfer power to his son, Hun Manet, in a move viewed by some as stabilizing, but by others as dynastic. Cambodia now stands at a crossroads, balancing ancient heritage with modern ambitions. As it navigates global alliances and a connected generation's aspirations, the future remains uncertain. If you enjoyed this content, you may also like this video on the entire history of the magnificent and mysterious land that is Egypt.